April 5th, 2023. This is the 2000 tick chart of the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the thinkorswim platform. There are two pieces of economic data that came out today. One was at 5:15 a.m. Pacific Standard, which is right around here. And the second one, that was the ADP non-farm employment change. And then at 7 o'clock, right about here, was Pacific Standard Time, was the ISM Services PMI. In both cases, it didn't really move the market too much. And the total range of the market was about 36 points. So there wasn't quite a lot of oscillation, but there were a few trades in there. So this is how I drew up my charts. This is where my trades were at. I took 3 trades today and they were all green. So that was pretty nice. Go make them clear them out. Overall prices looked like they were holding this gigantic channel going down. So I saw prices pretty much moving within there, but then I did see some areas of consolidation as well as some smaller trend channels. And then toward the later half of the day, prices did kind of break out and start moving up, and then it fell into the range right here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. So this is a pre-market high. Let's see here. I drew the pre-market high and pre-market low, and I thought originally before the market opened it was going to be in a trading range. Prices respected the lower part of the trading range originally, but then it never got back to the top. So I actually drew the trading range, tightened it down to here. But when prices opened, it fell within this trading range again. So I drew this overlapping smaller trading range channel, trading range. And prices just kind of stayed within here as well. And then it finally broke out. So then I drew yet another. So this is the original one that I took down from up here and drew it down to here. And then it looked like it was consolidating here. I didn't see that many good setups. I mean, granted, you could say this is grouped together as a first entry long and then a second entry long, bouncing off the bottom here. But I didn't like the looks of this signal bar. But it turned out it would have worked, but I just didn't take that trade. And you'll also say there's a new low, first entry short, second entry short, it's getting toward the top. There's just a lot of chop early in the morning, so I just kind of left it alone. Prices then finally broke out, came back, tried to go back in to this larger trading range, this guy here, but it never quite did it. It chopped around, it kind of moved back in, and I did see a visual second entry short. So I saw a new low here. So technically, if this counting it very, very specific, very concise, it'd be new low, first entry short, second entry short. Then you could say this is a new low again. Then there would be, you zoom in. There's no second entry short, it's only a first entry short. The way I saw it just kind of one clean leg up, then there's a one clean leg down. So I counted this as one grouping first entry short, comes all the way back to the top. Then I saw this as a potential second entry short. So kind of a visual, because it rejected off of this descending trend channel, which I kind of drew. At first, it was just one trend support line, and it was actually a little bit higher, kind of cut through the top. But then when it touched here and it kind of rejected down, I've adjusted it later. And I said, I drew the bottom of this channel is actually a little bit higher, about right here. And I counted this as an overshoot, but then later I didn't like that, so I drew it down to here. But that's not important at this moment. What I did see is a rejection and a bounce. Excuse me. A rejection, and this is a pretty decent signal bar. And it was rejecting off the midline of this. But I also thought it could possibly be a failed breakout of this smaller trading range, but I thought the breakout was kind of, the failed breakout was kind of far at this point, so I just wasn't sure, so I left it alone. I said I'm just gonna leave it alone unless I see like a higher low, and I do get a higher low right here. So if I count this as a first entry short, second entry short, and there's a higher low. The higher low is kind of far, but it confirms this second entry short visual, and it's also at the top of this smaller trading range, which is this guy. So it could have been a decent trade, although this signal bar wasn't that good. So when it finally closed, it was already crushing and pushing toward the midline. So I wasn't sure if if it was going to be a good trade or not to take it right here because I was afraid that it might bounce back again. Turns out it would have worked and it made it all the way back to the bottom. And that's where I also saw a failed second entry long, because you can take it from here, come all the way down. It's the first break right here, first entry long, also bounced off the bottom of the trading range, comes up, comes back down, and then it bounces, doesn't quite bounce or touch, but it makes a second entry long here. And here's a double top, and it technically doesn't fail yet until right here. So even though this is a failed second entry long, it's rejected at the midline right here. And at this time, if you took it right here, you kind of have to take it on faith that this, signal bar is good enough that it kind of pushed down and there's enough room to the bottom of the trading range. And it's also a third touch of this descending channel, which I wouldn't have known or trusted yet because I would only had it drawn to touch 2 times and then it finally touched the 3rd time. So this would have happened pretty quickly. And so since it happened so quickly, even though it's a possible trade, I just felt like I wasn't ready to take that trade because it also, it's a break of this smaller short trend channel, breaks out once, and it should try to make a second low here. So it has a couple things going for it. The only thing that would worry me is if it was hit this bottom of this trading range. So I didn't take that trade though. Prices continue moving down. Turned out it would have been a pretty good trade. Prices continue moving down. I do see a new low here, first entry short. There's a second entry short right here, completes the second entry short here. And then I saw a higher low here. Now this higher low, I actually tried to get in on this trade because even though it's kind of like consolidating here, the EMA is holding and it's a breakout pullback of this excuse me, it's a breakout pullback of this smaller trading range, which I kind of had drawn. I don't know why it disappeared. I might accidentally have deleted it. So it was like a breakout pullback and it's going back up. So I actually tried to enter this trade, but I didn't get a fill because I was trying to be a little bit more optimistic. I put my entry, so this is like consolidating here. I put it 1 tick above this guy, which is right here. And so when it opened, it didn't fill me. It flashed down. I don't know why it still didn't fill me. And then it went up. So unfortunately, I didn't get filled on that trade. The price is then chopped around. Let me shorten this guy. Pulls back and then moves back up. At this point, I did have a third confirmation of this bigger descending trend channel. And when I touched here, I was happy to see it touched a couple more times here, except it wasn't clean. I didn't really like these overshoots, but I couldn't get a clean way to have this. If I had it lower, then it'd leave this guy up here hanging. So I just had to accept it here and had these 2 small little overshoots and deal with it. And then I saw this set up here. I saw this is a new low. It comes up first entry short, breaks out of this channel. So it makes a new high. So that's good. It tried to make a new high and it did. It made a second entry short. But here I didn't like this taking the second entry short yet. I wanted a confirmation lower high because I thought prices are going to come back down. And I certainly was wondering if it could have actually, had a failed second entry short and kept going up. But the lower high comes right here. And this lower high, I also tried to enter here because I saw a second entry short here. Let me just label that for my own records. Starting for the countdown here, first entry short, second entry short, lower high. I like this lower high. It's a pretty small candle. It's already breaking out. It broke out of this and already made a new high. I tried to go up the second time, it failed. So I actually tried to get a fill here, but when I was watching this candle push down, I finally decided that I wanted to enter that trade, but it was too late. So I had my entry 1 tick below. And so the only hope was that this candle will come back up and pick me up, but it didn't. So I ended up missing that trade. And so I do see this new high here, first entry long. Then I see a second entry long. Second entry long is made right here. And I'm still thinking prices are coming down. So when it came up to here, I saw a failed second entry long, especially when this candle kind of formed. It broke out, and I immediately, as soon as this candle completed, which was right here, I said, I want to get in on this trade because it closed below the EMA. It looks like it's going to come back down. And I put my entry one tick below, and I was able to get filled, which is great on this candle. And then my stops up here at the double top. Ends up, it worked out pretty well. I also got my runner, but it got stopped out right here. So it wasn't a big runner, but still was pretty nice. So that was my first trade of the day. Prices continue moving. I'm thinking it might be in this channel now because I actually had this support line drawn when it came all the way down to here. And I just kind of put it up here just to encapsulate all the price action. Prices continue moving up. I saw this possible trade here, which was a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. This is actually a really pretty decent signal bar. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to take this trade because I just was watching it and I wasn't ready to take it. But I looked at it later and I noticed, it's also triple top because it made one touch here, pushed up, tried to break the second time, and then try to make it a third time, and it failed. On top of that, it confirmed. Well, it didn't really confirm, but it kind of touched this. So it would have been a good enough trade for me, except I just wasn't prepared to take it. And it would have worked out pretty well, one tick below, and you would have pretty much probably got your runner, depending on where your runner was, and your core taken out in one go, which would have been pretty nice. Keeps going down. And so I do see a new low here. Saw first entry short, comes up. I don't see a second entry short, but I also counted up from here. I saw a first entry long right here, then a second entry long. And I saw this as kind of like this price action. It broke out. It probably wants to make a new low down here. So I saw this as a pretty decent bearish bar right here. And so I decided to take this trade. It's a good signal bar. It also closed below the EMA, and it's moving back into this channel to test the extreme of the low. And I also noticed that it made two attempts made two attempts to make a new high after the break of this thing because it tried to make a high here. It failed. It tried to make a high here, but it's just too much selling. So I put an entry right here and I was able to get filled. And I was also chase a runner down to about right here and I got taken out by this candle. So two trades with two profits and a small little humble runner. And prices chopped up. I also saw this. This is where I took my third trade. And I was getting a little anxious, thinking like, hey, am I taking too many trades at once? But I saw a new low here. First entry short comes up. I'm anticipating a second entry short. Now, I was a little early, but I drew the bottom of this trading range here, and I put it at the top here. So I interpret it at least as a possible second entry short and a potential fail breakout. So I put my trade one tick below here, one tick below this guy. And this candle took it, and it also filled my core. But unfortunately, the runner got stopped out right here because it kind of went down, took out my core position, and then got my runner right here when I moved it to one tick below break even. But then I also saw a bigger visual, first entry short, second entry short, and then here it bounced off and there's a potential failed second entry short, but this isn't a very good signal bar because there's too much wick up here, too much of a tail, as plus it's running into this trading range, which I decided was the top of the trading range. So I got to respect my rules, thinking, I don't want to be buying at the high. Turns out it would have worked. And then prices continue moving up. I draw this channel connecting these two lines, and then I like that it kind of connected pretty well up here. I actually had a little bit lower, but I dragged it up later, as you're going to see. Prices kind of continue moving up, chopped around. It was in this consolidation area. I did see a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. Now it bounced off of here, this bottom of this channel, but this signal bar just wasn't good enough for me at the time, so I just didn't want to take it, but it was a possible trade. Turns out it would have worked out really well. And then I see a new low here, first entry short, then a second entry short. Now the second entry short, it is a break of this channel. Excuse me. It is a break of this channel. It has a decent signal bar. And I was wondering if it would test the high because I had a conflicting thing going on. I had this drawn as my short-term trend channel, and I also had this as my bigger trend channel. Now, it also made a measure move up to here and another measure move up to here. The thing I was wondering was, when it broke out of this and it broke out here, because this is all I see at the time, was it going to come up and test the extreme and kind of complete the measured move, or was it going to be strong enough and be counted as an overshoot here and come all the way back down to test this side? So I wasn't sure exactly which one was going to win out, so I decided to just pass on the trade. Turns out this bigger channel was, I guess, in play because it pushed prices all the way back down right to the EMA. And in this case, I guess this measure move was considered complete. Now, this is a signal bar. When you see this, I'd be hesitant to take a short entry here, after this close, because you're really, really close to the EMA now. Turns out it would have worked for a quick scalp, but this is just a high risk proposition to try to take one tick below. So the entry would have been up here. But again, with my experience, which isn't very much, I don't know if this one is in play. It's going to push it all the way back down, pull things back in, consider this an overshoot, or was this is going to be considered a breakout, first breakout, and make a new high here to try to complete this measured move. So all that being said, I wasn't sure, so I just left it alone, and I'm okay with that. I saw a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. This is a pretty decent signal bar, but it kind of ended right here, right kind of together. And excuse me, it's a good signal bar. The prices didn't make it to the other side of this channel, so it might be losing power, but I was afraid that it was counter trend. So I wasn't sure if that was, safe enough to take. And I wanted a lower high confirmation, which I do get here. So this lower high confirmation is like confirmation of the second entry short. Now, the reason I didn't take this entry is because the lower high confirmation, when it closed, it's already so close to the EMA, as well as pretty close to the midline of this trading range. Given that these two things are kind of sitting there, like this could be a double entry, or not double entry, but two key support levels, it made me hesitant to try to take this trade. So I just left that alone. And prices continue moving. I did see a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, and then a failure in the first entry, excuse me, failure on the second entry long. It's a pretty decent signal bar for the failure, and it's below the EMA. It's also close to the midline, so this is probably a possible trade because there's also enough room to make it all the way down to the bottom of this trading range. Even if the trading range I was a little more, even if I had it down here, there's still enough, room, I thought, from here to here. So unfortunately, I didn't take this trade, but I looked at it and I considered it. And then once it started moving, I was too late. Then prices continued chopping and chopped all the way into the close. Now, there was a lot of price action here. I did see this potentially as a new high, first entry long, and a second entry long, but this is too close to the end of the day. This is right here at 1 minute before the close. And right now, if the EMA was holding prices, but where this set up at the time of day, I just wasn't ready and wasn't willing to take these trades to try to see if I could get out in time. So hopefully that was helpful. It was kind of an interesting day. I didn't really see that many setups in the beginning, and most of my setups and entries were kind of around the middle part of the day, from 8 to about, I'd say 8 to about 10:30 Pacific Standard. So I guess it'd be 11 to about 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully that was helpful.